Getting anything to you, Tony?
Hold on.
Good evening, everyone. The time's 7:30, so tonight we'll start the Standards Committee meeting. I'm just going to read out the emergency evacuation announcement. Should we be required to evacuate the building, would you please leave the building via the rear doors to the hall. Turn right, go through the 2 sets of double doors to the car park, which is the assembly point. Please do not delay your evacuation to collect any belongings. Please do not return to the building until given permission to do so by the council staff. Please note that the meeting will be audio recorded. Please switch off any mobiles or turn them to silent. Members, there are 4 microphones on the tables for use during the meeting. When I invite you to speak, please wait until there is a microphone in front of you before speaking, as microphones are needed for the hearing loop and for the audio recording. Where possible, please help by passing microphones to each other and use the hand, gel and antibacterial wipes on the tables if you do touch the microphones. Members, voting will be done on a show of hands in line with the Constitution. I will ask for a show of hands and then against the recommendations. Numbers not voting will be noted by the officers. Okay. Agenda item number 1, apologies for absence. Apologies have been received from Councillor Tony Carter, Mrs Tony Carter. Agenda item 2, substitute members, Councillor Mrs Christine Mason is substituting for Councillor Mrs Tony Carter. Thank you, Mrs Christine Mason. Agenda item number 3, non-members attending. We welcome tonight Councillor Mr Chris Stanley. Agenda item number 4, minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of March. Are the minutes agreed, members? Yes, Councillor Constable.
Thank you, Chair. Under parish members attending, I did attend that meeting, but I'm obviously not on there.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Constable. We'll amend those. Are there any more indications for any inaccuracies or comments? Thank you, members. I'll take those as agreed. Agenda item number 5, to receive declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, members? No one has indicated. Thank you. So, moving on to agenda item number 6, the Standards Committee Working Group, and our officer Sonia Worthington will present the officer's report for us.
Members, Council on the 19th of February 2020 determined that the composition of the Member Training Working Group be decided and constituted by the Standards Committee starting from the next municipal year onwards, i.e. with effect from the last municipal year, from 2020 to 21. Last year, the working group was determined by this committee, and it comprised 6 members. The members were councillors Mrs McPherson, Mrs Gooding, Mrs Lumley, Stanley, Steptoe and Wilson. Working groups do not have to be drawn for members of the Standards Committee. Any member of the council can be invited to be working group members. There has been a considerable change in membership of the Standards Committee this year, and members may want to consider some continuity in membership of the working group, perhaps retaining some of last year's members if they're willing to continue. Ultimately, however, it is for this committee sitting here this evening to determine the membership of its own working group. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Members, have you got any questions, please? Councillor Mr. Drake?
I'd like to be a member of the working group, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Drake. Is it a question? Anybody got any questions at the moment on the paper? Okay, members. There's one recommendation, as you can see in paragraph 5.1 on 6.1 of the report. And that is that this committee determines the membership of the Standards Committee working group for the 2021-22 municipal year. I did ask our officer to email out to members of the working group from last year, asking if they would be interested in staying on the committee. I'm pleased to say that councillors Mrs. June Lumley and councillor Mr. Stuart Wilson, and I must give credit to councillor Mr. Stuart Wilson for his contribution towards the internet IT survey that has recently come around. It's been a great help on that working group. And of course, also our independent member, councillor Mr. Shepherd. Thank you. So I would like to recommend that councillors Mrs. June Lumley and councillor Stuart Wilson and councillor Mr. Shepherd all remain on the working group. Have I got a seconder, please? Thank you very much. That's councillor Mr. Dray. Thank you. Now, have we got other nominations for the working group? Councillor Mr. Efty?
Want to be considered to become a working group?
Thank you. Councillor Mr. Goodwin?
Yes, I would also like to be considered, please.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Mason?
Thank you. As I'm studying, it's appropriate that I would be considered. But I would like to suggest, and I think Councillor Mr. Gooding's let me call it, one of the newer members at least is on there, so that we can consider the needs of newer members on training. I'd also like to say Chris Stanley, ask him if he would like to continue, because he certainly did a lot of work on it in the past. I don't think Councillor Stanley is
Yep, Councillor Sanders already indicated he wants to speak. Thank you very much, Councillor Mrs. Mason.
Also, I'd like to suggest that she's not here, but Councillor Tony Carter is considered, so that we get a cross representation.
And she'd be willing to stand on.
I have to ask her because I haven't had the opportunity to do so.
She hasn't indicated to us, so yes, we'll follow that up. Thank you.
I must admit, I didn't see that email either, so perhaps we missed it.
It's the only agenda item. Councillor Mr. Stanley, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd like to be considered to work on that working group. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Mr. Gary Myers.
I'd also like to be considered for this.
Thank you. So, Sonia, could you... Is that the list?
Yeah, I'm just going to...
Bear with me. I'm just going to read out the list, and if everybody is in favour, I will then ask you to indicate. On the working group, there will be myself, Councillor Dray, Councillor Mrs. June Lumley, Councillor Mr. Wilson, Mr Shadbolt, Councillor Mr FD, Councillor Mr Gooding, Councillor Mr Stanley, Councillor Mr Myers and Councillor Mrs Carter, subject to her agreement. Could I have a vote on that, please, if you could indicate?
Yeah. That's unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you, that's unanimous. And that, members, concludes the business for this evening. The meeting is closed at 8:40. Thank you all very much for coming out this evening.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.